going to begin to take off and then fire, and it's caught. Touchdown, James Jones.
Rodgers with time, down the sideline, has his man, Jordy Nelson. Nelson on his way.
Two-minute warning here in Arlington, over the middle. Caught. Touchdown. Greg Jennings.
Last time. Now some pressure. Throws it deep. Jordy Nelson. He's got it inside the 20.
Well, that was fun. The Packers topped the Houston Texans and moved to 5-1 on the year. Final score of 35-20. I'm Alex Strouf, as always, alongside my good friend, producer Kyle. And we're going to try to break down what we just witnessed. A lot of fun games in the noon slate. The Packers-Texans not really super fun, except if you're a Packer.
Jonathan Vilma wanted it to be a close game. That's what he said on the broadcast.
Yeah, so. I don't understand. So I'm always like under the idea, right, Kyle, that broadcasters aren't cheering for a particular team, right?
Well,
like I go to UW. I don't even like cheer for my college to win when I'm calling games. So I have a hard time believing Kenny Albert and Jonathan Vilma have a super big tie with the Houston Texans. I don't understand that completely.
They just want it to be a close game so it'd be more entertaining for them to
which is fair, right? Yeah. I did hear him say that.
I did hear him say that. You should make any game sound interesting.
That's fair. Well, it is an interesting one. Nonetheless, so the Packers now 5-1. They win 35-20 in Houston today. And there's a couple headlines we'll get into. Of course, Davante Adams being the big one, but producer Kyle's diagnosis of today's win. Go ahead, Kyle.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell me, you ship me off so I can, answer phone calls. But yeah, I'll give my diagnosis quick if that's what you really want. Last week when I came in, nice. We talked about, not overreacting after, a brutal loss in Tampa Bay. Same thing here. Not overreacting over a team that's 1-5. And granted, they've had a really tough schedule, and the only bad loss they truly had was against Minnesota in a game in which they should have beat Minnesota. I mean, they had the ball on the goal line and should have won. But this is still a 1-5 Minnesota team that fired their head coach. I'm not overreacting about this one either. I'm staying consistent with this. I mean, it's nice to get the win, but just like last week when I no overreacting about a bad loss, I'm not overreacting about this win because there's still some things that this team needs to clean up if they want to, obviously win the Super Bowl.
Yep, I agree 100%. That's producer Kyle. He's standing by to take your calls. 877-878-7683. Whatever you want to talk about from the Packers win today over the Texans, I'm happy to oblige. Let's talk some football for the next hour or so as we dive into this. But first things first, let's get into the big headline from this Packers victory today. And that is Davante Adams, baby. Davante Adams had a huge day. 13 catches, 196 yards, and a pair of touchdowns for the elite wide receiver, Davante Adams. And, we talk a lot. We joke a lot, really, more so. When Davante Adams has been missing the last 2 years, the Packers have typically won their games. And, so, of course, there's the theory that the Packers are better without Davante Adams. Today proved the exact opposite, as Davante Adams, 193 yards on 13 catches and 2 touchdowns. And come on, man. And, a question that I want to focus on the phone line today, 877-878-7683, would be, who do you feel like is the one Packer on either side of the ball right now, not named Aaron Rodgers, that you would like to be a Packer for life? So any Packer not named Aaron Rodgers, who would you like to be a Packer for life? Interested to hear your answers, 877-878-7683, or in the live comments on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. But no David Bakhtiari on offense, no Aaron Jones on offense, no Alan Lazard on offense, and no problem for the Packers offense, who again eclipsed that 30-point marker, scored 35 points today in Houston. And Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams, and Jamal Williams, all big days Rodgers 23 of 34. So Rodgers, this is insane to me. Rodgers completed 23 passes. 13 of them went to one guy. That's not normal, right? And I'm by no means like a box score junkie. I don't know what is normal, but 23 completed passes and 13 of them, that's well over half of his passes, went to one guy successfully. That's nuts to me. That's nuts. But that tells you how good that connection is between Rodgers and Adams. Jamal Williams had a big day as well. 19 carries, 77 yards in that touchdown there in the fourth quarter. Good to see Jamal get in the end zone for the first time this year. I'm sure a good conversation coming Tuesday on the Jamal Williams Show presented by Game On Wisconsin. Excited to see what he has to say about the big Packers win. So Davante Adams, again, 13 catches, 196 yards, 2 touchdowns. How can't you be thrilled with that? How can't you be excited about that? I mean, no Allen Lazard. No Dave. You're missing your left tackle, your number 2 wide receiver, and your number 1 running back. And your number 1 wide receiver, who, I mean, I assume the entire game plan that Houston schemed defensively against Green Bay had to be focused on Davante Adams. Why wouldn't it be? You know how good the guy is. You know what he is capable of and what he's done this season, let alone his career. And Houston, who by all means is a bad team, lets this happen. Let's 13 catches, 196 yards, and 2 touchdowns happen. Wow. Big game for Davante Adams. But Kyle mentioned something that I want to get back to, and that is, just like last week, don't overreact. So what I mean by that is, right, Tampa Bay, good team, maybe debatably the best defense in the National Football League. And they got crapped on. I mean, they allowed 38 unanswered points after scoring the first 10, 38. I mean, that's ugly loss last week for Green Bay. But our message last week was, don't overreact. It's off a bye. It's early in the season. There's still plenty of time to figure out the miscues, the mistakes, and the missteps along the way in that Tampa Bay game. So when they roll back, and, they were very openly pissed off all week, the Green Bay Packers were. Very openly upset with their play last week. They felt like the week prior, they did not have a good week of practice. And they wanted to, as Andy Herman put it on Twitter, punch somebody in the mouth today. And they did just that with a 35-20 victory. They were hitting on all cylinders. And offensively, even without their left tackle, their starting running back, and their number 2 wide receiver, they looked like that offense in week 1 against Minnesota, or in week 2 against Detroit. It was when that defense or that offense was hitting at its best levels of this season. It was reminiscent of that today without their left tackle, who might be the best left tackle in football, and like a top 5 running back in football. And Allen Lazard, who's become an absolutely exceptional part of their offense the last 2 years. So good stuff from the Packers offense. And last week, too, we were talking about Rodgers was forcing. And Rodgers was obviously very off against Tampa Bay last week. But we talked about Rodgers forcing the ball to Davante Adams, potentially. It was Davante Adams' return. And we thought Rodgers was overcompensating for time lost, essentially. And, there might have been some realism to that. Rodgers was, 2 of those interceptions, the 2 interceptions he threw, weren't great passes. He looked off all of last week. But today, when he targets Davante Adams the amount of times he did, completes 13 of the passes on the 16 targets he threw to Davante Adams. When you have the production that you got today, can you even justify that comment that Aaron Rodgers is forcing the ball to 17? Interesting. Phone line still open, 877-878-7683. Excited to get your thoughts on the Packers' big win over the Houston Texans today. And I want to look at the defense, because that's obviously been a big topic of conversation all season long. Mike Pettin. Oh, man, last week I think we had 3 phone calls last week alone calling for Mike Pettin's head. Why the hell is Mike Pettin still a D coordinator? Well, you got a decent showing of that today. Houston's still a very talented offense. When you've got an offense made of Deshaun Watson, David Johnson, All those wide receivers, Randall Cobb, Kenny Stills, Brandon Cooks, of course, Will Fuller the fifth. I mean, you've got pieces to defend. And Mike Pettin finally went on Twitter, I think, because he was not throwing three-man rushes, especially late in garbage time where Mike Pettin's defenses have typically collapsed this season. The frustration in the last quarter, in the fourth quarter this year, Mike Pettin's defense has not been good consistently. Whether the Packers are up big, whether they're down big, whatever. The defense hasn't been good. And today, you see Adrian Amos, flying in for tackles for losses, recovering that fumble there late in the fourth quarter. You saw Preston Smith was pressuring the quarterback. I don't think he recorded a sack or a tackle for loss, but he was in the face a lot today, was Preston Smith. One tackle for loss for Preston. And Jair Alexander, again, just absolutely terrific. The last 3 weeks, folks, Jair Alexander has not allowed a catch. He has not allowed a yard against Calvin Ridley, Will Fuller, and who do you have last week? I believe it was Mike Evans last week for Jair, or was it Chris Godwin? I think he had Chris Godwin last week. But still, has not allowed a catch the last 3 weeks, says Jair. How good is Jair Alexander? I mean, the guy is a legitimate elite cornerback in the NFL. And I don't know if I expected that for him coming out of Louisville when Brian Gutekunst in his first draft traded up for Jair, looking like he was well worth the investment at this point. Well worth the investment. Live chats are wide open. Would love to feature some of your thoughts on today's victory for the Packers, 35-20 over the Houston Texans, 877-878-7683. The phone line's wide open. I've got a busy day today, man. Gotta host the world's largest trivia contest from 8 to midnight tonight. So that's what I'll be up to post this. Producer Kyle is with us, and Producer Kyle, if you're not too busy, you want to help me go around the NFL?
I would love to go around the NFL.
Let's go around the NFL. So obviously plenty of games on the noon slate today, but just to look at the games happening right now, all four of these games in the first quarter, except the Buccaneers and Raiders headed to the second quarter. They're tied at 7 apiece. The Chiefs and Broncos scoreless, 49ers, Patriots scoreless, and Jags and Chargers also scoreless.
And that Buccaneers-Raiders game, that was supposed to be the Sunday night game until the entire Raiders offensive line decided to, not follow protocol. COVID protocol.
Yeah, so the pieces of their offensive line is there, but Trent Brown is not, is my understanding, because he did actually test positive. But so that game going on right now, that'll be a good one, I think. Where should we start? How about the Lions topping the Falcons?
Falcons. I want to talk about this quick. I don't want to interrupt you, but the Falcons have blown another lead. They were up 22-16 with like 16 seconds to go, and Stafford hits, I believe it was Kenny Galladay, deep for a pass to get him inside the 15-yard line. And from there, it was just – I feel so bad for the Falcons. They're a very talented team. They have one of the most potent offenses in the league, and they just – for some reason, they just cannot get it done. And they have now lost to the lowly Matt Patricia-led Lions and are sitting at 1-6. Right? Do they have a win or do they not have a win? I don't know if they have a win.
They have a win. They're 1-6.
Okay.
They beat the Vikings last week. They are not good, and neither are the Lions. But T.J. Hawkinson coming through for my fantasy team at the end of the game, scoring that game-winning touchdown for the Lions. The Lions now have a whole 500 record. They're 3-3. The Lions are right back in this thing.
Maybe Matt Patricia is. I mean, if the Lions were in the NFC East, they'd be winning.
I was just about to say, I would be willing to loan the Lions to the NFC East. For the rest of the year, so they can have a playoff spot. I'd rather see Matt Stafford in the playoffs than Carson Wentz or Ben freaking DiNucci. Let's go to that game next. Let's get there. The Cowboys. Well, there was no better way to put this. They were, there is a better way to put that.
I'm going to put it in a
They
really good
got
mix here.
smashed. They got smashed.
The Cowboys are the Browns of the NFC. And let me explain. The Cowboys are the 2019 Browns of this year. Because the Browns were overhyped. They were, they got all these great pieces on offense. They got a brand new head coach. The Cowboys have all these great pieces on offense. Now, granted, you lost Dak Prescott for the year. I'll give you that. You got a brand new coach. You drafted CeeDee Lamb, who I believe was the best receiver coming out of the draft. Sedarian, I'm sorry. Yes. For those of you watching the pre-snap or not for the pre-snap, the Game on Fantasy show this morning, CeeDee's real name is Sedarian, which
I didn't know until today, which was awesome.
Good for him. I had no idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Cowboys are, they're now 1-6, or they have 2 wins.
The Cowboys have 2 wins, if I'm not mistaken.
2 wins. Okay, so they're 2-5.
Yep.
Yeah, now they're down to their third string quarterback, but Ben DiNucci, is that what you said his name was?
Ben DiNucci, yeah. So Andy Dalton goes out. Ben DiNucci from, if I'm not mistaken, George Mason University.
Oh, I think they had a good basketball team once.
Once they did. So Ben DiNucci, now the starting quarterback of the Cowboys, they lose Andy Dalton. I didn't see it, Kyle. What happened?
I didn't see it either. I just know that Twitter was losing their mind when I believe it was a dirty hit.
So your Washington player. Okay, yeah, okay.
So it looked like a horrific injury because that's what Twitter was telling me. So, and if I'm wrong, then I blame Twitter. But I'll obviously look it up once I can after the show. But yeah, they looks like they've lost Andy Dalton for a significant amount of time now. So Ben DiNucci, taking the signals or calling the signals from Mike McCarthy in Dallas.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, what I want to talk about is Mike McCarthy.
Yeah,
I want to talk about Mike McCarthy in Dallas because this is a real conversation now. They're 2-5. You mentioned the expectations coming into the season, and of course you can blame a lot of it on losing Dak Prescott. Of course you can, right? Because Dak Prescott was playing MVP level football. I know he wasn't the front runner by any means, but he was playing really good football before his injury. And now you lose him, you lose Dalton, you lose a lot of your offensive line. I get that. I get you can blame it on injuries. But they're 2-5, and they were easily favored to win that division regardless. I mean, there was really no talk about, obviously, the Giants or the football team who walked all over them today. There's, of course, always talk about the Eagles, but how much do we believe in Carson Wentz at this point? I don't know if Mike McCarthy makes it through the season. I think he legitimately has a chance of being a one and done, which is too bad.
I mean, I still want to stay away from that because Jerry Jones is very well known for keeping head coaches way too long. Jason Garrett being the other individual who should have been gone a long time ago from Dallas. I can't say that Mike McCarthy's out after this year. I know they've come out really bad. They're without the engine.
What if they go like 4-12?
See, that could very well happen with Ben DiNucci as your quarterback.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Who the hell's Ben DiNucci?
But I think Jerry Jones is going to have to realize that
sounds like a waiter at the local Italian restaurant. Ben DiNucci. Sounds like a Power Ranger, like a kid that loves he has a Power Rangers backpack. Like, check out DiNucci's Power Ranger backpack. Like, who the hell's Ben DiNucci?
Well, we're gonna find out. I'll tell you that. I mean, unless they pick up, I don't know who's available.
Apparently.
Maybe, hey, I know the Dolphins.
They got to go get Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, there you go.
They got to go get
Fitzpatrick. But my point I want to make though, quick, is that I think Jerry Jones is gonna realize that they're without Dak Prescott, and even with the drop off to Andy Dalton is significant. But even now, you're dropping from Andy Dalton to your local Olive Garden waiter. Ben DiNucci. That's what I'm gonna call it. That's great. I love that. I think he's gonna realize that. Look, this is a fluke season. You're not gonna get that. I mean, it was a fluke injury for Dak. I just looked at the hit on Andy Dalton, and he was sliding down, and the defender came in with his shoulder and just laid it into his helmet. So maybe it's just a concussion, and a couple week thing. But yeah, Dallas is struggling, and I don't think McCarthy's gone after this year, especially if they don't get Andy Dalton back. So I just think Jerry Jones is a long leash. I just think because Jerry Jones.
So what's wrong with Andy Dalton? It's a shoulder. It's a concussion. What is it?
He was sliding down, and the defender came in and dove with his shoulder, and you could see his head, go back and hit the ground.
So what did he hurt? His head?
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Kyle.
Sure.
Okay, so if it's a concussion, he'll be back. But I didn't know if it was a collarbone. I didn't see it. I just know he's hurt.
Yeah.
So Ben DiNucci, the quarterback of the Cowboys for the time. But yeah, I don't know. You can blame it as much as you want on injuries, but if McCarthy continues this, I think there's a legitimate shot he is one and done. And I never thought I'd be saying that, right, Kyle? You know, when we were doing my show over the summer, I was so high on the Cowboys. Like, I legitimately thought they were going to win the NFC. Super high on the Cowboys. And, you know, after a couple of weeks of the McCarthy experiment, it brought back horrible nightmares of when he was the head coach of the Packers at the end of his tenure, of course. Love the guy. I think Mike McCarthy's great. Just don't know if he's a head coach anymore. So we'll see in Dallas. But that is not I don't care if Ben DiNucci's your freaking quarterback or your kicker, man. 25-3 against the Washington football team. It's pretty damn bad.
Well, I want to shy away from this bad football and go to some actually good football. 2 really good innings that we saw today. Starting with this game that was supposed to be played week 4 until Tennessee decided to break COVID restrictions. And Tennessee was down 27-7 at one point, and they almost came back and won. So to the premier teams in the AFC, Steelers, I think you could make an argument are the best team in the NFL right now.
Yeah, I'd make that argument. I made that argument yesterday. I would legitimately make the argument that they are the best team, at least in the AFC right now. Of course, Kansas City is always in the conversation. Baltimore too is in the conversation. But we praised Pittsburgh's defense a lot, and we don't give a whole lot of credit to Tennessee's offense. So 24 points is interesting. I don't know how to take that because it's not like it's unacceptable. It's not too many points, but you're up big. Your defense's job is to hold them, and then you allow them to come right within 3 of this. So it's a push and shove for me. I don't know. I think Pittsburgh, has proved they are a top team in the NFL, no doubt about it. They have to be a favorite to make it to at least the AFC Championship game, if not the Super Bowl. Their offense, man, it's good. Their defense, it's good. They've got a well-rounded team, which is hard to come by in the NFL. So I like Pittsburgh, and this was a big win.
And they have one of the best coaches in the NFL, Mike Tomlin. He doesn't get talked about enough. I saw a graphic of most coaches to start their career without having a losing record. And Mike Tomlin has never coached a team with a losing record. His 13 years coaching in the NFL, not once has he had a team 7-9 or worse. And Pittsburgh's had some pretty bad teams over the last decade and a half, and they've not once had a losing record. And that just tells you how good Mike Tomlin is. He's a great coach. Period.
No doubt about it. How about the other ones? Browns and Bengals, man, that came down to the last second. Baker Mayfield finds Donovan Peoples-Jones for, I think it was about a 30-yard touchdown to win the game, 37-34 to the final. Joe Burrow, 35 completions, 406 yards, 3 touchdown passes.
Fantasy day for me. As a fantasy
holy
owner,
crap, that's a good day.
Burrow.
That's the most yards anybody threw today. 406 yards for Joe Burrow.
Yeah, and I said it coming into today that I think that Joe Burrow is the front runner for offensive rookie of the year, and I think today, even though he lost, that's a hell of a game. Whether you win or lose, they put up 400 yards. And the Browns, it's not like the Browns have a bad defense either. The Browns have a good defense. They got some good talent on their team, and Burrow still torched them.
The thing about the Browns that I don't understand is I don't know if they have a good defense. I don't know if I can agree with that, because when they play
they have good talent is what I mean. They have good talent.
Yeah, they do. They do. They have pieces, but when they play bad teams, they put up points, but they also allow a lot of points. It's always very high scoring when they play a bad team. I mean, I referenced that Dallas game, which they dominated, but there was a high scoring game there too. So a couple weeks back. And then one other game that happened today, the Saints and the Panthers, really close one. And it was for a lot in the NFC South, as the Panthers were 500 coming into this one. The Saints were just a game over 500. And the Saints ultimately won that one 27-24. They're now 4-2 in the NFC South, are the Saints. So keeping pace, and that's going to be a fun battle, I think, throughout, as they'll await to see what the Buccaneers do.
Yeah, I mean, coming into the season, it had been a 2-team race for the NFC South between New Orleans and Tampa Bay. And, Carolina, they've been a fun team. They got a couple of wins nobody had expected them to get. Losing Christian McCaffrey, people thought their season was over, and, they've held in, but now back-to-back weeks with just a brutal loss. Maybe Carolina sneaks in as a wild card, but I think with how good the NFC West is, I don't think that happens.
Oh, man. So what else did I miss? Did I miss any good games? The Bills almost lost to the Jets, 18-10, the final there. And then we mentioned Washington football team. So let's go back to the Packers game and let's wrap up. Give some final thoughts from the Packers win over the Houston Texans today. Again, the final was 35-20. Devontae Adams, super important to this offense. Jamal Williams was great in Aaron Jones' replacement. The guy is such a good pass blocker. Jamal Williams is. That's really a talent we've seen evolve and become one of his, if not his, top talent this year.
And with Aaron Jones not playing, a lot of people had speculated this game as what could this is like what the team could look like next season. Maybe we don't have Aaron Jones, maybe not David Bakhtiari, Kevin King. I would hope that David Bakhtiari is back next season, but I feel like this game, and I'm kind of going off track here just a little bit. Mm-hmm. This game kind of maybe proves a little bit that maybe Aaron Jones shouldn't get a huge payday, because this offense can roll with Jamal Williams at running back. I know Jamal Williams is a free agent as well, but maybe if you want to cut corners on costs, maybe you don't re-sign Jones and you re-sign Jamal Williams instead, and then you have Williams and Dillon as your backfield going forward. And I think today we got a great preview of that, and I liked what we got.
I also like what we got. And that offense, like we said, no Bakhtiari, no Jones, no Lazard, didn't sputter, still 35 points. For the Packers today, they will host Minnesota next week before a short week and going to San Francisco the following Thursday night. That is November 5th. So 2 days after the trade deadline, and we are only about 9 days away from the trade deadline. So it'll be fun to watch if Brian Gutekunst sees any urgency to make a move. Before we go, I do want to mention one thing because I brought up the trade deadline. Which I don't expect them to at all, don't get the wrong idea, but if the crazy occurrence happens where the Packers want to go out and trade for a wide receiver, you might need to look in Houston for Aaron Rodgers' former pal, Randall Cobb, who had a big game today, 8 receptions, 95 yards for Randall Cobb. On the Texans today, I would love a reunion.
The only issue with that is Cobb has a bad contract. He got paid very, very well by Houston. And last I checked from Ken Ingles, the Packers only have about $7 million available in cap. Cobb, I believe, is making almost $10 million this year in Houston. So that's the only issue that comes up. But I don't think the Packers do make a move. I think if the Packers make a move at all, it's not for receiver. And I think it's, front seven. Because I
was actually going to argue defensive back, man. But front seven. True.
Yeah, front seven. I mean, Chris Barnes went off with an injury today, and not sure how serious that was. Ty Summers filled in. We got Kamal Martin back, which is great. He looked fantastic today. But I think if the Packers do make a move at the deadline, it's not for receiver. It's
defense.
It's on the defensive side of the ball, and it's
defense.
It's likely defensive line.
Well, I would make the argument for defensive back just because you look at the fall off, right? You had Kevin King and Darnell Savage out today.
Yeah,
and your replacements. Are you excited about Raven Green? Are you excited about Vernon Scott? Had a nice tackle.
Raven Green had a pretty good game.
He did.
I was disappointed with Shannon Sullivan not following through on the 2 sack opportunities he had on Deshaun Watson. And if that's Tom Brady back there, he's probably getting the sack. But and then he also botched the onside kick recovery too that Houston had. So not a good day for Shannon. Although he's a great slot corner. The fall off is huge. So now that I think about it, trading for DB shouldn't be out of the question.
Yeah, I don't think anything is really off the table, if it ever is, with Brian Gutekunst.
I think that the Packers really want to get spicy here. I think they should. I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean, put him in. Give him backup quarterback.
Okay, thanks, producer Kyle. That's producer Kyle from Green Bay chiming in. I'm Alex Strouf. This has been the Post Route on Game On Wisconsin. Always enjoy our interaction as the Packers roll over the Houston Texans 35-20. Again, the Packers back in action next Sunday, November 1st, as they play host to the division rival Minnesota Vikings. And we've got broadcast associate Michelle Tafoya to bring us home.
What do you think you told the critics tonight? Congratulations, Eric.